Hey everyone, welcome to our Beyond the Pulpit podcast. We are so excited to be able to have conversations about those things you wouldn't talk about on a Sunday morning, whether it's because, you don't have enough time, or hey, it's a little controversial, it's a little uncomfortable. Hey friends, it's episode 3 of Beyond the Pulpit. We've just had so much fun the last couple episodes, but today we are flipping the script a little bit. We've got Pastor Gabe interviewing Pastor Andrea and myself, and we're pretty excited about today.
This is my turn to now ask questions.
It's your turn.
It's
you
my
are
turn.
in control. It is all about you and us today. Go ahead. What do you got for us?
Thank you guys. Just first off, I really do just want to honor you guys and thank you for even being able to sit here and be open and honest, because I know this is beyond the pulpit. This is where we get to be really vulnerable, and it's just hard to be here in this seat. So thank you for being transparent in what we're going to hear. And I just want to honor you guys and just say, I love you guys.
Aww,
and
thanks.
Yeah. I
I
really appreciate
Gaby.
You guys.
We love you, Gaby.
And that's just not me trying to say that because I want to raise or anything like that. It's just, but seriously.
Good, because I'm not giving you one.
I'm not going to get one.
No, I'm just kidding. You deserve one, buddy. You deserve one.
In episode 1, though, we talked a lot about me and my upbringing as far as how it was growing up. Mm-hmm. My salvation story, what it was kind of like growing up in my house, what that was like. 2 summers ago now, we had a conversation in your backyard by your fire pit. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about your marriage, how you both have met, but now I want to know more about each one of you individually before both of you guys met, and because you have lived very full lives.
Yeah.
Some maybe more full than the other.
Her.
You're referring to me.
Her. She's had a very full life before me. Very full life. Hopefully she gets completely transparent and honest today about the fullness of her life. But you're absolutely right. We met each other at 25 years old. So we lived 25 years without each other in our lives.
Sure.
And so, hey, why don't you go first?
You want me to go first? Okay, I'm an open book today. So if you have questions about anything I'm about to say, Pastor Gabe, feel free to go ahead and ask.
Okay.
But we can go back to the beginning, not the way back beginning, but we started out as Catholic. So we went to the Catholic church when I was very little. My mom actually was Catholic. My dad was Jewish. So we had an interesting household growing up, but my parents got divorced when I was 8.
Okay.
And we were attending the Catholic church, but then because my parents got divorced, my mom was excommunicated or kicked out. So after that, we decided she had found another church. It was like a United Church of Christ. So we went to that church for quite a while, and, it was kind of sleepy. Wasn't a whole lot going on there for young people, which we went and we went to church. That's what we did, on Sundays. So, but then my mom had a cousin who loved Jesus and would always talk to her about Jesus. And, she was like, yeah, I know who that is, but we just constantly witnessed to her. And so eventually my mom was the first one who got saved. And so then she started talking to my sister and I about Jesus. And so she got saved and then realized that the church that we were going to, they really didn't believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit. They didn't really believe in talking about the Holy Spirit so much. So she was like, I think we need to move on and to find something else. So I was late high school, early college years. And so I was very much of the world, lived the world.
What does that
life.
mean? Very much of the world. That's so churchy.
I know, it was very churchy.
What does
listen,
it mean?
Tell
us it all.
I partied, I drank, I smoked weed, and I did a lot of those things because that's just kind of who I was around.
Yeah.
That's what they did. And I was looking for love. I was looking to be accepted. I was looking to fit in. And so that's what I did. And then I went to college, not saved, but went to college and was in the party scene. So every Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, that's what we did. We drank, we smoked, we partied, and, had a couple of run-ins with the police.
Is there a mugshot out there?
There's
that
no
we
mugshots.
need to know about?
No mugshots at all.
All right.
Are we sure there's not
I'm
a mugshot?
100% positive. 100%.
I think it would be really
Do you
good, Pastor
realize-
Gabe, if we found the mugshot and we put it up like right here in the moment.
Because this is on YouTube, there are detectives.
Yeah, well, there's no mugshots.
YouTube detectives that will find it.
None. In college, I had met someone, and we started dating, and then we eventually got engaged. And so,
How old were you when you got engaged?
22.
22?
I want to say around 22. It's really. I'm sorry.
You're
it's-
questioning 22 the same way when Pastor Jon asked me how old I was. I said 33.
Listen, it's been a long time, and I drank a lot, and so I don't remember a lot of things. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
It's the pot. It's the pot.
Just kidding.
Your brain is burnt.
But yes, but
That was
All right. So,
awesome.
anyways,
Hey, Jesus was restored to you. You guys are lead
for sure,
pastors of a church
redemption
now.
story right here. I am a living redemption story.
Amen.
I am not the same person that I was after I met Jesus, and literally radically changed my life. So anyways, I was in this relationship, and I realized that, within all of that stuff, my mom had gotten saved, and then she started talking to my sister and I, witnessing to us. And I told this story before, but the Left Behind series was really popular back then. And so
Kirk Cameron.
she would leave the Left Behind book like everywhere in our sight line. So she would leave it, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, Mom, like, okay, did you read it yet? No, I didn't read the book yet, but eventually,
She's really happy, her mom, probably, that she's getting a shout out in this podcast too. She loves
we love my mom.
We love you,
This is the
Mom.
power of a praying mother, I am
true.
the witness, living testimony of a power of a praying parent. So she found Jesus, and then she started talking to my sister and I about it. And then eventually it just like clicked, right?
Yeah.
One day I said the sinner's prayer, and I asked the Lord, I repented of my sins and asked him to, be Lord and Savior of my life. And then literally from that moment on, my eyes were open, like the scriptures say. The scales were removed, my eyes were open, and then I had this hunger and this desire and I just wanted to know more.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more. I wanted to just be obedient to his word. And I didn't know his word because, again, we didn't grow up that way.
You said 8 years old was when you guys were excommunicated from the Catholic Church.
I received First Holy Communion, but then that was about it.
Okay.
And then I did go through like confirmation. But it's just different. It's different when you just go through the motions, right? Than when your eyes are open and then you have a deeper understanding of the word. When the Holy Spirit just reveals, those deeper meanings of the word. And so, I would just go to church like midweek service by myself, and I was just all in, and I just wanted to learn as much as I could. And
This is why you were still engaged.
Yeah, and he wasn't a believer, and so. Again, all these my heart just started to just shift and to change, and I just wanted to be obedient. I just wanted to be obedient. And, even, my friends, I started not going to the bars. I started not drinking. I started to see the brokenness all around me, and it made me so sad.
Yeah.
And it really just, literally my eyes were open. And then I grieved for I used to do that. I don't need to do that anymore. I didn't need to have a drink of alcohol to have a good time. I could still have fun. I didn't need to do those things, and I didn't need to go to those places anymore.
Yeah.
And the people that I was friends with, I love them dearly.
Yeah.
And so they weren't on the same journey that I was, and I just couldn't do some of the things that I used to do because I didn't want to put myself in temptation's way. And I really needed to create some boundaries and things like that. And then I ended that relationship because he just wasn't on the same. He didn't want to even explore, he didn't want to. And so I was like, well, this is not God's best for me. I knew that this was not what God wanted. And again, kudos to a power of a praying mother. She prayed and prayed and prayed. And that was, but I had to be the one to see that. And I had to be the one to make the decision. And so I did.
You know what's really interesting, what you said or what you described, right? I say this often that a lot of times if we just change the behaviors, it doesn't change our hearts. It has to start from our hearts, which changes our behaviors. And what you just shared was your heart was changed, and then the behaviors followed. That's why works-based theology just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that part of what you just shared is, hey, I built a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And once I started to build a relationship with Jesus, those other things just didn't seem right anymore.
Right.
They didn't taste as good. They didn't give me the fulfillment and the way they used to. And I think that's really, really, really powerful, because a lot of times when people say yes to Jesus, they start to build a relationship with Jesus. They automatically want to become someone who's been following Jesus a long time, or they have this idea, you can't do this, you can't do that, but no, it's a process. It's a born again. The pastor that was the church we grew up in, right? He would say this all the time. It's a born again process. Yeah. It's not a once and done thing. So I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah. So you ended up separating from your fiance at that point. Yeah. And you're still in college at this point. Your friends
I was out of college by then. Yeah.
So did your friends like give up on you, or like how was that like, as far as, you got saved and you're changing your life, but did they like say, all right, Andrea, at this point?
That's a great question. No, they didn't give up on me. I mean, they would still invite me to like bachelorette parties and they were all getting married. So when I ended the relationship, I literally thought my life was over. Yeah. I was like, I'm never going to meet anybody again. I don't even go to bars anymore. Like, where am I going to meet somebody? Like, that's how I had no, first of all, I didn't think that God could, restore me, redeem me, or if I was worthy enough to like, have somebody come into my life. That was great. But I also was like, well, where am I going to meet people? I work and that's it. Now I work and go to church. Where am I going to meet somebody? But no, my friends they didn't understand, but they loved me as a person. And so eventually they kind of stopped inviting me to stuff because they were like, she always says no anyways. They didn't like cut me off or anything. I did, not go on a lot of adventures with them, like bachelorette parties and things like that. I'm like, I just can't do that. I can't put myself in those. I love you, but I can't put myself in those situations because, first of all, I'm a new like believer and there's just too much temptation for me. Because when I say I drank a lot, like, and so it was, I couldn't do that. I couldn't put myself in those situations again because I didn't fully trust myself. That I couldn't kind of slip right back into that lifestyle.
I think that's really good what you just said as well, right? Is a lot of times people want their lives to change, but they continue to put themselves in the same environment, the environment they were in before Jesus, right? And so there has to be, and that's what's difficult about the born again process or becoming a follower of Jesus and fully following Jesus, is it does require sacrifice.
Yeah.
It requires pruning.
Yeah.
There's a great book by Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings.
Right.
And he starts the entire first chapter, I believe it is, all about the rose bush and how a gardener has to cut the rose bush, prune the rose bush to almost nothing, even the good parts, in order for it the next year to come back bigger and stronger. And I believe that's a great image of the believers, of the Jesus followers' life, especially in the beginning of your walk, is it requires a lot of pruning. It requires a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
A lot of people look at folks that are mature believers and they're like, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. But they don't realize the amount of pruning and the amount of sacrifice, right? We're in this transition period. We're just 3 days away from transitioning in from our installation as Life Church's lead pastors. And you sit and you think and you go, wow, Pastors Randy and Maribel had to sacrifice a lot to get where they are today, for the church to be where it's at today. And so the following Jesus life isn't an easy life. Nobody should be promising it that it's an easy life.
The blood, sweat, and tears.
Correct.
But it's so worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It is not easy. You're right. There's sacrifice. There's things that you have to lay down.
Yeah.
Right? Things that maybe have brought you joy, but it no longer is what's...
Aside from your mom, did you have anyone else in your life that was kind of like helping you through this?
No, not really. No, my mom was the first one in our family. And then, there was like distant cousins, but no, my mom was the first one.
Yeah.
And so nobody at college. I was not surrounded by any Christians whatsoever at college. And then
you didn't join any Christian clubs?
No, I was.
Did they have that back then?
I didn't even look for it. I didn't even know that was a thing. So if you don't know it's a thing, you don't go and look for it, right?
Yeah.
So no, I really had the only community I had was then our church. And so it was just my sister, my mom, and go to church and try to meet, other people. And then
that's how she met this good-looking guy right here.
Yeah,
right?
He carried my
I'm
candy.
talking about me, in case anybody's confused. This
not the
good-looking
other
guy,
guy.
right? Yeah, not the other guy. This good-looking guy.
Yeah, but that was when I started to get involved a little bit in the church. So I started helping. He was working with youth, and then I started helping, like, tutoring with the youth if they needed it. And then, and then there were he had friends at the church, and my sister had a couple, like, there was just mutual. So they all started scheming. And I was like, I do not want anything. I do not want to meet anybody.
They were
I'm
trying to
good.
play Cupid.
Yeah, they were. And so anyways, that's a story for another day. But
Pastor Jon, who do you have to thank for, like, officially being like...
What, being connected with her?
Yes.
This is my thanking tour or what?
Well,
what? No, but it's a good question though. I'm incredibly grateful for what God has done, because what you don't realize, and many don't realize, or you don't realize it until afterwards, is just a few months before I met her, I had terminated a long-term unhealthy relationship. Right. And I felt the same way, which was like, hey, I'm just in my wilderness season and I'm never going to meet someone. And I wasn't a partier. I wasn't any of those things at all. And so for me, it was even more like, where am I going to meet someone?
Yeah.
And dating apps weren't a thing. They weren't a thing.
No,
Yeah.
MySpace was.
I didn't have one of those.
MySpace was a thing, I think.
You had a top 8.
I don't know what that means.
That's MySpace. You had a top 8. It was like...
I probably didn't even know how to use it,
I
right?
was a teenager in MySpace.
Yeah, you would have known.
Yeah,
I was a college student. So
you're my friend this week. The other one's not.
Yeah. It's interesting. As you get older, you reflect more on your past. And I'm not saying we're old. We're in our mid 40s, and I'm young, yes. But as you get in our prime, yeah. As you get older, you reflect more. And I remember that moment in Beaver Falls, in a small, tiny church, saying yes to Jesus. And just with 20 people, I don't think there was anybody in that room under the age of 50 other than me. And knowing that decision in 1991-ish, whatever, that decision led us to here, right? Where we're at today. And that decision, and what was her? It'll come to me. I'm trying to remember the pastor's name. Ruby. Her name was Pastor Ruby. It was a female pastor. Praise God. And Pastor Ruby led me to Jesus.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I recommitted my life at 14 at a youth winter weekend. But it's incredible when you spend time and you reflect and you look back and you go, thank God for Pastor Ruby.
Yeah.
Thank God for that moment, because look what he's done. We have 3 amazing girls. They drive us crazy, but amazing girls. And we're just stepping into more of what God has for us. Never would have imagined, and I'm maybe jumping the gun on you, but never would have imagined us taking on the role of lead pastors of a large, impactful, influential church in Pennsylvania. But yeah, anyway.
I want to thank you, Pastor Andrea, for being vulnerable. I know there's a lot of people that might hear that and they're like, thank you so much. Because you know what? There's people that are watching and they're also listening, that they see us on Sunday morning, whether it be on the platform or you're sitting down there, and they just know who we are.
Yeah.
But they don't know the story behind all of that. You don't know that, in their teenage years, you were partying, you were in a very worldly like relationship, everything about it. So, but now it's like, yes, absolutely. God has restored you and redeemed you to this place to where here in just a couple of days, you guys are going to be taking over and transitioning into a new leadership role that is, I can't even imagine. And I have questions about that as well. But before we get there, Pastor Jon, I kind of want to, you've shared a little bit about your childhood and what that's like, but I'm curious to know a little bit more about your embedded faith. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've shared this before. My mom was Catholic. My dad was Jewish.
Look at that. Same thing.
there we
Same
go.
thing.
Yeah. So there's some weird, maybe for another conversation, some weird kind of correlations and interesting things when we met. But I grew up in a pretty normal family, right? Except for I got to experience things that helped to form me into who I am today. So, for example, my mom was a medical assistant when growing up, and so she would work for insurance companies, and she would go do medical exams when you wanted to get insurance. You were applying for insurance. And I remember her coming home so many times in tears, and I was just a little kid, and learning that the reason she was in tears was because some man inappropriately spoke to her because she was, a woman or a good-looking woman, or racist comments because of the color of her skin, or the fact that she had an accent and she was Hispanic, so all those things helped form me, right? The fact that my parents had different faith at the time. Now my dad, thank God, in 1995-ish, he committed his life to Jesus and has been committed ever since to Jesus. But we grew up in a pretty normal air quotes life, other than some other things that I shared in the other podcast. And I think it was episode one.
Yeah.
So people can go back to listen to that one. Don't want to recap it for this time, but I think one of the things that my parents taught me that was really good was commitment, right? And sacrifice. And that really helped for me to understand that when you are in a relationship with someone, or you're in, more importantly, a relationship with God, commitment and sacrifice is required.
Yeah.
And other things that's really important that I don't think I've ever shared publicly, maybe, is my mom was very sick growing up. She continues. We say she's like a cat with 9 lives. We don't like cats, but we like my mom.
Yeah.
And she's been, she's had cancer multiple times and surgeries. And when I was 10 years old, my mom had to have her colon completely removed. And she was very sick, major surgery. My grandmother, Colombian grandmother, came and stayed with us as she recovered. And I had to do things as a 10-year-old that most 10-year-olds don't do.
Yeah.
I had to help clean my mother's wounds from the incision. My grandmother would have me clean the entire house, clean the bathrooms, help cook dinner. My grandmother was all over me. I worked really hard at that young age. I look back at that time, I'm like, this really stinks. And even as a teenager, I'm like, this really stinks. But I look back now, and it created a work ethic in me that has taught me so much and helped to form me into who I am today. And so you're grateful for those things. But I think all of that has helped to, I said formed already, but form my faith as well, because when I do something, I put it all in, and I'm all into Jesus, and I've been all in to Jesus. Now, have I had moments of lacking of faith? Absolutely. Even through this transition process, we never knew this was going to be so hard, right?
Yeah.
A lot of emotion, a lot of all that stuff, but just ministry in general. But I think our commitment, both of us being committed to this process, committed to our faith, committed to ministry, has helped us to overcome some of the real painful parts of ministry. I'll stop there.
I just want to say one thing too, which is pretty cool. So my father, who was Jewish, also now loves Jesus.
Oh,
and he actually got saved at Life Church and was baptized at Life Church. So
Hey.
woohoo, it's pretty cool.
And he was actually saved after one of my sermons, which is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
I hope that's true. That's true, right?
I think partially, yeah.
Oh, partially. I'll take
Were
the
you
partial.
hosting that Sunday?
I don't know what it was, but I believe it was me.
I think his wife's brother started to prime that pump for a while, was priming the pump and really kind of speaking to him. But then,
Yeah, I took him over the finish line.
Yeah.
I took him over the finish line.
And if we're wrong, he'll correct us. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're right in the comments. We'll get it.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
in the comments.
But Pastor Jon, it seems like your family growing up, even though in episode 1 we shared a little bit, dysfunctional to an extent, all families are. Mm-hmm. But your parents were together, seemed like through thick and thin. Mm-hmm. And, your Pastor Andrew, your parents at 8 years old, you're going through a broken home at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So going into like your marriage, I know this could go into like a marriage talk and things like that, but what were your thoughts on marriage based on like what was modeled for you? And then also what was modeled for you, because you're coming from different worlds where, there's an expectation that you have, that you've seen in marriage and what that's like. But then over here, you've seen people give up too quickly. And you guys, you have 3 incredible daughters, and just your lives are a living testament of what God has done in your life. Mm-hmm. And it's just, even though the world can mess us up and do its best to screw us up, God is faithful. Mm-hmm. God is just.
It's good.
And he's kept you 2 together. But what was that like going into a marriage where you had your parents were together through, through some tough times, and your parents weren't, and you were kind of in that broken, whatever that may look like.
Sure.
Yeah. My parents been married 50 years. They just celebrated that last summer, 50 years.
I don't think anyone goes into a relationship like, oh, I'm going to get divorced. Yeah. Right. So, I think just for us, so what I can say is that, I'm extremely loyal and extremely committed. Yeah. And so just like my husband is, and, I knew that I didn't want divorce to be, a way out. I knew that the person that I was going to marry was going to be the one that I wanted to, do the rest of my life with. And so, of course it shapes it shapes your view of things. So my mom got remarried, and, actually, sadly, 6 months before our wedding. So talk about like just views getting could be shaken. My stepfather left my mom. Oh. So her world kind of collapsed, and that was a really, really tough time for our family. And that literally was, my sister had just gotten married. So it was 3 weeks after she got married, and it was 6 months before we were getting married. So, but family rallies around each other, and they help each other. And, that's what we had to kind of do. But I just knew that, I don't know. I wanted the generational curse to be broken. I wanted to stop with us. Yeah. I wanted that, not that my parents didn't, and I don't want to, dishonor them in any way, but people make choices, people make decisions, right? Yeah. And so before you have a relationship with Jesus too, sometimes it's just survival, and, but after Jesus, then it's, you want to make the decisions that are in line with the word. And so, I don't know, just for me, it was like, it's not really an option. If we need to go to counseling, we'll go to counseling. If we're going through a rough time and we need to invite somebody in to speak into our relationship, then we'll do that, and so that's one thing that, we will allow other people in to speak to us, to mentor us. And that's one thing that we're just committed to. So.
But I think what's also really important and I don't want people to misunderstand. You didn't say anything wrong. I just want to make sure that people don't misunderstand. We absolutely understand there are moments where there is the only way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From an unsafe, unhealthy,
absolutely,
sure, I'm
abusive,
yes,
ugly relationship is divorce, right? But we will always advocate and fight. We'll do anything we can to help a couple stay united. And you're right. This isn't a marriage podcast. We will be having one.
We will.
I think that's either the next one or the one after that, with our guests from the marriage conference, Married Life Conference. But I think one of the things for us is for me, you're right. I had an expectation that my parents had been married a long time at that point, that divorce wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that was what was important to us was, hey, divorce isn't an option. And so for us, it's not an option.
Yeah.
And that's what's kept us committed. Now, listen, in ministry, that's hard. That's really hard because there are pressures in ministry that people who aren't in ministry don't really understand. So your commitment and your work to stay together has to be even more intentional because the pressures are strong. The being pulled in different directions it can be a lot.
And there's big targets on our back, right?
The
enemy will do anything to take us out. And so we kind of, we know that. It doesn't, and sometimes the attacks are great.
Yeah.
And, but again, we're committed to each other. And I don't want to, I hope I didn't say anything that made people who have gotten divorced, feel bad in any way, or like, I don't want to, there are some, I agree with what you said. There are some reasons where people shouldn't stay married, but that was just something that I knew that I didn't want to do. And,
Yeah.
And I'm talking about just like, if there's like fighting, if there's, disagreements, things like that, where within our relationship, like he's never abused me. He's not abusive in any way. But just, without separating those things from it, normal conflicts, disagreements, that I wasn't going to call it quits because of those things.
And a lot of times issues in marriages start with something that was really small, right?
Yep.
That somebody stuffed, somebody didn't communicate. And when those things aren't dealt with over years, it's like an avalanche, right? It just builds, and it becomes a lot bigger. And so I would encourage anybody who's listening and watching that you don't forget or put aside the importance of talking about virtually everything with your spouse.
Yep.
Because little things can produce big consequences if they're not dealt with.
This is good. We are just a few days away from, the transition service and you guys officially taking over. But I kind of want to know, how has your life changed in, personally, with your marriage, with your family, personally, since going into this new role? Because currently you guys serve as campus pastors over the Nazareth campus, but you're moving into this where now you are lead pastors of a multi-site church. And how has that changed you individually as a married couple with the family? What's that like?
Yeah, you're ending the podcast with a bang,
I know.
huh? I'll go first if that's okay.
Sure.
I think one of the things that's really important, and you learned a little bit about our commitment and integrity and all those things that are important to us, is for us, it's if we're going to do this, we're going all in.
Yeah.
Right. And we've committed to the next 15 to 20 years to partner with Jesus in building his church and to serve the people of Life Church with all that we've got. But there's a lot that comes with that. We were just talking about this today, about the impact upon our kids and trying to make sure that our kids live a normal life as best as possible. And that this is our yes. It's not their yes.
Yeah.
But it becomes their yes because they're our kids. And so it's so important for us that if people love us, that they love them. If they honor us, that they honor them. If they pray for us, that they pray for them. Because one of the things we've done over the last 3 years, every conference we've gone to, every round table we've gone to, anybody who's been in ministry for a longer period of time, somebody more mature in the faith or in ministry, we've said to them, hey, how did you not screw up your kids? Right? Yeah. Tell us how we cannot screw up our kids, because that's the most important thing for us. Right. Because what we don't want to do is stand before God one day. I don't want to stand before God. She doesn't. And they say, great, you built a great church. You took what Pastors Randy and Maribel did and you took it, further, and great, fantastic. But your kids are jacked up.
Yeah.
You forgot your kids in the process.
Yeah.
And I don't want God to say that to me. Yeah. Right. And our first ministry has to be our children. So one of the things that we've been taught to us is include your kids as much as possible. People don't know this because it's behind the scenes, but our kids are here as we're filming this podcast. Right. And making it exciting for them, making them part of the process. Because if it's their yes without them choosing yes, then let's make it a good adventure for them. So that's been really what we've been doing for the last couple years, is not just all the other things to prepare, developing as leaders, but preparing our family for this.
Yeah.
Because, hey, the reality is it's a change. It's a pretty major change.
I think personally for me, how have I changed?
Yeah.
There's been a stretching, and a crushing
Yeah.
that has happened over the last couple of years, that you don't know what you don't know when you're, when you sign up, when you say yes to something. And so we knew, but we didn't really know what it was going to look like. And so I depend on God more now than I did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's really, that personally for me has really just propelled that area for me. I am trying to be more intentional about what I say yes to and what I don't say yes to. Because if it has to do with my kids, I'm saying yes first.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff. So I've had to lay down some things that I enjoy doing, but because I want to be present with my kids, I'm laying down some things, some groups and things like that to lead for a season. And I can pick those back up again eventually when they're older and they're grown. Yep. But that is something that, we try just our schedules. If he's out of the house, I'm in the house. If I'm out of the house, he's in the house in the evening. So to try to just maintain, some balance, that they get we're present with them as well, physically present and also, emotionally present. Now, I'm not going to lie. There are days where we're exhausted, exhausted. We pour out and pour out and pour out. And so there's some days where you got nothing left to pour out at home. And so, the kids are, we can say, hey guys, we're tired. We're tapped, can we talk about this tomorrow? And there are days where they're like, no, I need you. And so then you suck it up and
there's no days off.
No, you suck it up and you listen. And then there are days where they're like, yeah, that's okay. We can wait till tomorrow. So it's just.
I'll say this last thing. I think that one of the things in this position, right, is what we've learned, because the last year we've been leading with Pastors Randy and Maribel by our side, helping us. So we've gotten a flavor for what this gig is like. There's a lot of moving parts at any given time. It's not just preparing a sermon. It's not just, serving on a Sunday. I mean, we've got a staff, we've got, with staff comes complexities, and there's, budgets and preparing for board meetings, and there's a lot. And then vision and creating vision and sharing vision and building projects. And this building needs this construction issue, and there's a leak over here, and there's a flood over there, and all those sort of things. And of course, we have incredible executive pastors that lead alongside us and support us, but there's a lot. And so it's been, what's changed us is learning how to navigate all that stuff. And
you can't never turn your phone off.
You have to, right? You can't answer everybody at all times. But the reality is, what has changed us in this is we've become better leaders.
Yeah.
We've become better communicators, and we're hoping to become better parents eventually.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Help us, Lord.
We're hoping. Anyway.
Yeah, that's good, because being in the position you guys are in, there's always going to be this expectation that other people have on you, but yet you still have to live your normal lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, your first ministry is to your family, as you said.
Totally.
And there's going to be people they're going to have things to say. Like, I'm sure you get emails all the time.
Yeah.
Saying you should have done this. You should have done this. I'm leaving the church because you didn't say this, or you don't talk enough about this, or whatever it may be. But when you're faithful with your family, everything else begins to line up, because if you don't have the support of your family, you ministry can be very lonely.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I have one last question, 30-second answer. What are your dreams for Life Church? As the new leaders, just
You want to go
Dreams.
first? Or you want me to go first?
Go ahead. You can go.
You sure?
Yeah, go.
Listen, I think that what we're not doing is we're not coming into this going, we're changing everything.
Yeah.
Right? There are 34 years of beautiful stories and beautiful victories and things that God has done. And I think our dream is to be able to honor the past while pursue the future that God has for us, and do it with excellence, so that when it's time for us to turn this over to the next generation, that we can look back and go, for 55 years or whatever the math equals, 56 years, God has been honored and God has been faithful and lives have been changed. And so do I have a lot of vision? Do we have a lot of vision on how we're going to do that? Of course. We got tons of, sometimes she's like, what? You're thinking 5 years from now? I'm like 10 years down the road already. But just being, our dream is just to be faithful.
Yeah.
And to be able to, what we never want to do is, and we say this, and we said this to the staff, Pastor Gabe, you've heard this, is we never want to look back 15 years from now and go, wow, we have 20 campuses, 20,000 people attending, all these things, but we built it on the backs of people. Yeah. There's carcasses everywhere.
Yeah.
No. We want to look back and go, we've done this with excellence. We've honored the founders. We've honored Jesus, of course, and we've honored people well.
Yeah, I think just continue to make disciples. Continue to make disciples, and to continue to have the next generation be better than the generation before them, and just be on fire and sold out for God. So not changing anything, but just continuing, building big people, not necessarily big buildings, and loving people, and having people be transformed by the love of Jesus. It's really the dream.
Yeah.
So,
that's good. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
No, thank you
for sitting down and talking with us, talk a little bit about succession. And, ultimately we know that succession is not about you guys. It's not about PR and PM.
It's all about Jesus.
That's right.
It's all about Jesus.
Yeah.
You guys are some key players in the role in this, but it's for the church.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been great. Hey, so that's episode 3. That's a wrap. Everybody make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe. We're excited about episode 4, Beyond the Pulpit.